Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Imagine sitting down at your desk with a massive deadline looming. You go to open the primary software tool your entire company relies on, and instead of a loading screen, you just get a blank page.
Right, total panic.
Exactly. You refresh, nothing. You check X, and you realize it isn't a server outage. The US government has quietly forced the company to pull the plug on the entire global system overnight. Welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm Alex.
And I'm Morgan.
It is Wednesday, July 1st, 2026. Our mission here is to break down the biggest tech news and explain how it actually impacts your everyday life, your family, and your work. We are bypassing the jargon to get straight to the mechanics of what is happening behind your screens.
But before we get into the heavy tech news, let's get you caught up on the morning updates. For those of you listening locally here in Sacramento, you're going to want to stay near the air conditioning today.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we are looking at sunny skies with a high of 88 degrees and just a light breeze. You know, winds blowing about 2 to 8 miles per hour.
I will definitely be staying indoors. And for anyone traveling or checking in on family across the country, keep an eye on the radar. The national map is incredibly busy today.
Lots of storms out there.
Yeah, there are currently 318 active U.S. weather alerts, and 218 of those are overland. You can always check weather.gov for the specifics in your area.
Moving over to the financial markets, it was, well, a very solid day on Wall Street yesterday. The Dow Jones closed at 52,319.20, pushing up 151.02 points.
Not bad at all.
Right. And the S&P 500 also saw some healthy gains, closing at 7,499.36, which is up just over 58 points.
And for the crypto watchers out there keeping tabs on the digital markets, Bitcoin opened this morning, July 1st, slightly in the green. It is currently trading over 58,724.
Finally, a quick check on the sports world from last night. It was definitely a rough evening if you were rooting for the local baseball teams.
Yeah, don't remind me.
Sorry. The SF Giants dropped their game to the Arizona Diamondbacks, final score 2-8. Brandon Pfaadt took the win on the mound for Arizona.
And the Athletics also took a pretty heavy hit, losing to the LA Dodgers 3-9. Justin Wrobleski got the win for LA in that matchup. So, yeah, a tough night on the diamond all around.
Definitely a night to forget for the local fans.
Let's shift gears to the main event. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Strong Coffee, the premium instant coffee that tastes like a traditional brew, but is packed with 15 grams of protein, MCTs, and adaptogens like ashwagandha. Get clean, sustained energy without the jitters. Use promo code SNARFL for 20% off at strongcoffeecompany.com.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, July 1st, officially marks the end of what the industry has been calling the Great AI Blackout.
Finally.
Yeah, it's been a long few weeks. Anthropic's highly anticipated AI models, Claude Fable 5 and Mythos 5, are returning to the public today.
And if you've been trying to use these tools for your job over the last 3 weeks, you are painfully aware of this blackout. These models have been completely restricted and inaccessible since June 12th.
A total standstill.
Right. I want to start by understanding the mechanics of that initial shutdown. Like, how does an entire global software launch just disappear overnight?
It comes down to a very sudden maneuver by the U.S. Department of Commerce. On the evening of June 12th, they applied an immediate export control directive specifically targeting these new Anthropic AI models.
Okay, so a government block.
Exactly. But the stated goal of that directive was actually highly specific. It was meant to restrict access to foreign nationals.
But hold on, if the directive was only meant for foreign nationals, I'm sitting here in California and my access was completely blocked too.
Right.
So why did a targeted government restriction result in a total worldwide blackout for everyone?
Because of the architectural reality of the internet. Verifying someone's nationality in real time at the scale of millions of queries per second is practically impossible right now.
Oh, because of how IP addresses work?
Precisely.
Yeah.
An IP address only tells a server where a device is supposedly located at that exact second. It doesn't verify the actual passport of the human sitting at the keyboard.
Which means anyone could just use a VPN to mask their location anyway and bypass a simple location block.
Exactly. Because Anthropic could not instantly verify the actual nationality of their users to comply with this sudden export control, they had no technological choice but to pull the plug on the entire system globally.
Just flip the off switch.
Yeah, to avoid violating the directive, nobody gets access.
It's literally like closing the entire interstate highway system because one person didn't have a driver's license. The blunt force of that is staggering.
It really is.
So they shut it down on June 12th. Why, after weeks of absolute gridlock, is the government suddenly letting them turn the servers back on today?
Well, it was a massive collision of two competing pressures. The U.S. government's primary motivation was strict national security. They are increasingly treating these frontier AI models not as consumer software, but as advanced strategic assets.
Right, like weapons almost?
Kind of, yeah. However, as the weeks dragged on, the pressure regarding global competitiveness became impossible to ignore.
Because technology development doesn't happen in a vacuum. If we hit pause, the rest of the world keeps hitting fast forward.
That is the exact argument that was brought to the table. Asian AI models, specifically competitors like Fugu and Tulongfeng, are rapidly approaching the capability levels of Fable 5 and Mythos 5.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, they are right behind them. And in the AI race, losing 3 weeks of deployment and user feedback is an eternity. If the U.S. keeps its own leading AI companies locked in the garage due to regulatory caution, it actively risks losing its dominant position on the global stage.
This is where we have to look at the situation impartially, because the motives behind this specific shutdown are heavily contested. Let's look at the cybersecurity community's perspective first.
Right, they had a lot to say.
They did. A lot of experts were incredibly skeptical of the Department of Commerce's actions here. They pointed out that Anthropic had already pledged to implement proactive security measures and threat sharing voluntarily months before this directive.
Yeah, they thought they were already cooperating.
Exactly. So, to those critics, this sudden shutdown felt less like an urgent, necessary security fix and more like political leverage. Some argued it was a way for the Trump administration to flex its regulatory muscles and perhaps punish Anthropic executives for past public criticisms regarding how the government might try to weaponize or control this technology.
And we have to examine the government's stated defense of their actions as well, to be fair.
Let's hear it.
From the perspective of the Commerce Department and Secretary Howard Lutnick, who ultimately lifted the restrictions, this is purely about standardized national security.
No politics involved in their view.
Right. Their stance is that when you are dealing with technology, this incredibly powerful voluntary corporate pledges are simply not sufficient. They argue that strict export controls are a necessary formal mechanism to ensure foreign adversaries don't get unfettered access to tools that could be utilized for sophisticated cyber warfare.
So we have this massive debate over whether this was a vital national security intervention or a vast overreach of executive power. But if the government is treating the software like a potential weapon, we need to talk about what actually triggered those alarms in the first place.
The initial spark.
Yeah, what specific event spooked the Department of Commerce enough to issue an emergency directive on a Friday evening?
It all started with a research report out of Amazon. Their researchers found a way to jailbreak Fable 5.
Just Fable 5.
Yeah, keep in mind, Fable 5 is the consumer-facing model. It's the one everyday professionals might use to help draft a report or write some code.
Let me stop you there because the term jailbreak gets thrown around constantly in tech media. For someone who isn't a software engineer, what is mechanically happening inside the AI when a jailbreak occurs? Are the researchers hacking into Anthropic servers and rewriting the code?
Not at all. It is entirely linguistic. Yeah, an AI model has built-in safety guardrails rules that dictate what it is allowed to say and do. A jailbreak is essentially a highly specific, complex conversational prompt designed to confuse the model's underlying logic.
So you're just tricking it.
Exactly. You're tricking it into bypassing its own safety rules. In this specific case, the Amazon researchers used a prompting technique that successfully confused Fable 5, prompting it to identify software vulnerabilities and even output instructions on how to exploit one of them.
Okay, I can easily see how a government official reading a memo that says, "New AI gives instructions on how to exploit software," would hit the panic button.
Oh, absolutely.
But Anthropic really pushed back on that narrative, didn't they? They seemed baffled that this specific report caused a global shutdown.
They were, and their defense highlights a major disconnect in how we evaluate AI threats. Anthropic's response was essentially, look, this is not a novel, terrifying new capability.
It's not unprecedented.
Right. They immediately ran their own internal tests and confirmed that older, widely available models on the market could do the exact same thing.
So this wasn't some sudden leap in dangerous intelligence.
Far from it. They proved that models like Claude Opus 4.8, GPT 5.5, and Kimi K2.7 could all be tricked by the exact same prompt the Amazon researchers used.
Wow.
Furthermore, Anthropic argued that Fable 5 was never meant to be a lockdown security model. Mythos 5 is their actual cybersecurity powerhouse designed for that sensitive work, which is why Mythos was heavily restricted by the company from day one.
So Fable 5 was just doing routine coding work. It wasn't generating a brand new, unstoppable cyber weapon. It was just pointing out a standard software flaw, which, frankly, is something everyday developers ask AI to do all the time so they can patch their own company software.
That is the core of Anthropic's defense. A tool that helps you find flaws in your own code can inherently tell you how to exploit those flaws. It is a dual-use capability.
Regardless of the defense, though, Anthropic still had to appease the government to get these models back online today. And the way they achieve that is going to create a massive headache for the people listening right now who rely on these tools for their daily workflow. Let's talk about the fix.
Yeah, the fix is going to be noticeable. To satisfy the export control demands and resolve the jailbreak issue, Anthropic rushed out an incredibly strict new safety classifier.
A classifier, what does that look like for the user?
You can think of a classifier as a secondary overarching AI that sits between you and the main model. It acts as a highly aggressive bouncer, checking every single request you type before Fable 5 is allowed to even see it.
And I imagine a bouncer installed during a national security crisis is not going to be very forgiving.
No, it isn't. Anthropic claims this new classifier successfully blocks the Amazon jailbreak technique 99% of the time.
Yeah.
But because they had to build and deploy this system under extreme duress in just a few weeks, the classifier operates with a massive safety margin.
Let me use an analogy here to explain the real-world impact of that safety margin. It sounds like a company installing an ultra-sensitive metal detector at the front door of the office to stop armed thieves. But the sensitivity is cranked up so high that the system now constantly locks out everyday employees who just brought a metal thermos to work.
That is the perfect way to visualize what is happening starting today. We are going to see a flood of false positives.
So everyday tasks are going to get flagged.
Exactly. If you are an everyday working professional, maybe you're debugging a script for your company's website or asking the AI to analyze some server logs. If your request looks even slightly suspicious to this new hypersensitive bouncer, Fable 5 will refuse to help you.
And it won't just give you an error message either. From what Anthropic has stated, the system is designed to automatically bounce your request back down to an older, less capable model, specifically Opus 4.8.
Which creates a significant workflow problem. Because of how the internal usage credit systems are structured, once you get bounced, you might be stuck relying on that older model for these types of tasks until at least July 7th, when the server credit systems undergo their weekly update.
So the immediate trade-off for this national security intervention is a massive increase in daily friction for the everyday user. We are sacrificing convenience, workflow efficiency, and access to the best tools just to maintain this enormous safety margin.
It's a huge shift in the user experience.
It is. And that brings us to the most critical question of the day. We have this temporary bandage that is frustrating everyone. But if every time someone types a clever prompt on the internet, it triggers a national security alert and a global software shutdown, the tech industry simply cannot function.
The industry leaders know this, which is why Anthropic is now partnering with Amazon, Microsoft, and Google under a new initiative called Project Glasswing.
Project Glasswing, what's the goal there?
Their unified goal is to create the AI industry's very first jailbreak severity standard.
Because prior to this, a jailbreak was just a jailbreak. There was no nuance to it. A kid making an AI say a bad word and a hacker making an AI write a virus triggered the exact same kind of panic.
Exactly. And if we don't have a standardized, mechanical way to grade these threats, governments will continue to react with the blunt force of full export controls. So, Project Glasswing has proposed 4 specific criteria to mathematically evaluate how dangerous an AI jailbreak actually is.
Let's look closer at these 4 criteria, because this is effectively the new rulebook for how humanity interacts with frontier technology. The first criterion is capability gain. How exactly do they measure that?
It measures the delta between what the AI can do and what is already possible out there.
Yeah.
It asks, does this jailbreak make the AI do something that existing publicly available tools cannot do?
Okay, give me an example.
Well, if the jailbreak simply forces the AI to write a standard phishing email, the severity score remains low because bad actors can already use a basic search engine to find phishing templates.
That makes sense.
But If the jailbreak allows a novice user to suddenly engineer a highly sophisticated, previously unknown computer virus, the capability gain is massive, and the score spikes.
That distinction makes perfect sense. The second criterion they proposed is breadth of capability gain. What is the difference between capability and breadth?
Breadth focuses on versatility and scale.
Okay.
Does the discovered jailbreak only work on one very specific, outdated software system? Or does it act as a skeleton key that unlocks vulnerabilities across multiple different targets in various industries? The broader the potential impact across the digital landscape, the higher the severity score.
Got it. The third piece of the puzzle is ease of weaponization. I imagine this is looking at the human effort required on the other side of the keyboard.
It is entirely about the barrier to entry. Does the attacker just need to copy and paste one simple sentence into the chat box to bypass the guardrails?
Like the Amazon researchers did.
Exactly. If a single sentence works, the immediate threat level is terrifyingly high because millions of people could do it instantly. Conversely, does the jailbreak require days of complex coding, specialized hardware knowledge, and hundreds of retries? If the friction to execute the bypass is high, the immediate severity score is lower.
And the final criterion to round out the standard is discoverability.
Right. This asks a critical question about containment. Is this specific jailbreak a tightly kept secret, currently only known to a few elite researchers in a closed lab?
Or is it already on Reddit?
Basically, yeah. Has someone already posted the methodology on a public forum for the entire world to download and use? If the technique is widely public, the severity score jumps immediately because the genie is already out of the bottle.
So the overarching goal of Project Glasswing is to establish a language of trust. By grading jailbreaks on these 4 criteria, the industry hopes to be able to go to the Commerce Department and say, look, this bypass is only a level 1 threat based on the standard. Let us patch it quietly.
Instead of the government assuming everything is a level 4 world-ending threat and pulling the servers offline globally.
Exactly. But establishing that trust requires unprecedented access, doesn't it?
It does. Moving forward, AI companies are heavily integrating the U.S. government directly into their development and release cycles. They are now providing the government with pre-release access to their models.
Meaning government agencies are essentially test driving and red teaming these AIs long before the public ever gets a chance to see them.
Yes, exactly. They are also establishing rapid information sharing protocols so that the moment a severe jailbreak is discovered, the government is notified instantly.
Wow.
Furthermore, companies are dedicating massive computing resources strictly for joint research, working hand-in-hand with agencies like CASI, that's the Center for AI Standards and Innovation.
When you step back and look at the mechanics of this, it is a total paradigm shift. I mean, when you update the software on your smartphone, you just click a button, it downloads, and you move on with your day. But AI releases have fundamentally left that category. They are no longer just software updates.
No, they have crossed a threshold. They are now officially being treated, monitored, and regulated as strategic weapons-grade technologies.
And the real-world impact of that shift is going to be incredibly disruptive. You need to expect staggered rollouts from now on. We already saw OpenAI forced to do this recently with GPT 5.6, where access was heavily restricted and metered at launch.
Right, it was very controlled.
You have to expect sudden, temporary global shutdowns if a major flaw is found by a researcher. And as we discussed with Fable 5 today, you have to expect highly sensitive, often frustrating guardrails, constantly monitoring the tools you use for your work and your family life.
The famous Silicon Valley mantra of move fast and break things is officially dead when it comes to frontier AI. The government has installed itself as a permanent co-pilot in the release and management of these technologies.
Which leads me to ask the uncomfortable question. Anthropic themselves admit that perfect 100% jailbreak resistance is likely impossible given how language models function. So if perfection is impossible, and every minor bypass has the potential to trigger a massive government shutdown, will working professionals ever get uninterrupted, reliable access to frontier AI again? Or is this constant friction, these false positives and these sudden blackouts, just the permanent new normal?
It is a very real concern for the industry. We might be entering an era where relying on cloud-based frontier AI is similar to relying on the weather for outdoor plants.
That's a good way to put it.
Most days the system works perfectly, but you always have to be prepared for a sudden regulatory storm that grounds all the flights without warning. The safety margins are going to dictate the user experience for the foreseeable future.
It is genuinely wild to think how quickly we transition from AI being a fun novelty that generates funny images to to a technology that is heavily monitored and regulated, almost like nuclear material.
And we are witnessing just the very beginning of that complex regulatory framework being built in real time right in front of us.
Before we wrap up our analysis today, a quick thanks to Old Glory, an iconic music and sports fan merch store, perfect for the techie in your life. Use promo code SNARFL for 15% off at oldglory.com.
Pulling all of these threads together to look at the big picture from today's developments, we started by looking at a blocked AI model that disrupted workflows around the entire world for 3 weeks.
Right.
We explored the mechanics of how a relatively routine cybersecurity prompt discovered by Amazon researchers snowballed into a massive regulatory standoff. And finally, we detailed how the new Project Glasswing criteria proved that our everyday tech tools, the ones we use to draft emails, write code, and organize our lives, are now heavily monitored strategic assets subject to sudden government intervention.
It really reframes how we should view the software we interact with daily. But I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over today as these tools come back online. Everything we've discussed today involves centralized corporate models.
Right, big tech companies.
Exactly. Fable 5, GPT 5.6. These are built by massive corporations that have the resources to negotiate with governments, the ability to build and deploy strict classifiers overnight, and the financial padding to absorb the cost of a 3-week global shutdown.
They provide a clear corporate structure that the government can actually hold accountable.
But what happens when independent open source AI models inevitably catch up to this level of power? I'm talking about models that you can download directly to your own laptop, completely offline.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
With open source, there are no centralized corporate guardrails to tweak. There are no export controls or government agreements that can recall a file once it has been freely shared across the internet. When decentralized open source models finally reach the raw capability of a system like Mythos 5, who steps in then?
That is the exact question that should keep regulators awake at night, because the current playbook simply will not work.
We're here to help at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.